Hi everybody, welcome to the Garage Workshop. So this is the second part of our DIY wardrobe build. We're going to be doing the drawers today, also installing the two front doors across here and this little hanging rail that you see that I've already installed at the top. We're going to be installing the one across the bottom here. I'm going to be showing you how to actually build the door carcasses themselves and then putting the drawer fronts on, and then how to align the actual rails that they slide in drawers will go onto. We'll get into that straight away. Okay, so the first part that we're going to be doing today is just basically taking some measurements. We don't need to do anything up here in the room itself. We can measure everything down in the shop and bring it all back up. So all we need to do is just make sure that we take the measurements for building the drawers, the inside points of this shelf here, and also the depth of that. Now when we're taking the measurement for the depth and building the drawers, we never want to build the drawer exactly the same depth, just that when we actually finish it and it goes on the slider, we don't want it protruding. So these particular drawer fronts are going to be an overlay, so they're actually going to sit up against the front of the unit to stop the drawer actually going further back. So that's what will actually stop them. The drawer slides are full extension, but I like to leave my drawers a little bit thinner at the back than the actual depth, just to allow for any play in case you mess up your cuts. And the next thing you want to consider is the actual depth of the drawers as well, so the actual drawer fronts themselves compared to the opening that you've got. So you'll need to just measure the opening from the underside of this part here to the bottom shelf, and basically just divide that by how many doors you're going to have. So I've just took this measurement, let's say it's a metre, divided it by the 3, so I've got 33 centimetres and a little bit for each particular drawer. I'll make the drawers a little bit smaller because I don't want the actual drawer fronts to be the exact same size, to allow for this little overlap. And the drawer fronts themselves, you obviously want to leave a little gap between each of those. So I've left a 10mm gap between each of those. So upon taking this measurement, you've got the overall, dividing it by 3, and then I've took off 10mm for this drawer, 10mm for this drawer, and I'm going to be overlapping it a little bit on the bottom and top. And obviously on the sides here, I'm overlapping this 5mm, so that when this door gets fixed onto this side, it will be overlapping 5mm here, and leave a 10mm gap between these two, with it being a 20mm thick board, and it leaves the same gap all the way through, keeps it looking nice and even. Okay, so we have our boards all ready to go. We just need to get these put together now. So we're going to be using the pocket hole system like we use upstairs on the actual sides and top panels. The other thing we've got to look at is we've also got to put a bottom drawer on, a bottom base to the actual drawer. So I've gone ahead and actually routed out a groove which is going to be 5mm deep. You can put it any depth from the bottom of the actual drawer that you want. You just need to be aware of that the further up that you put it, the more actual drawer depth that you're going to lose. So I tend to leave it relatively close to the bottom, about an inch up. Keeps your spacing nice. Okay, so I've gone ahead and just clamped this first part in place, just so you can see exactly how this gets to be done, so there's nothing missing. So you've got a little corner clamp here that's just keeping this up in place, just to make it easier to keep your hands free. Got a larger clamp here, clamping these two sides together. So the key for making these drawers is to make sure that they're absolutely square. If this side is going to be longer than the other side, it's going to throw the front plate out, because when you start putting that front plate on, it's going to sit on a weird angle and it wants to be sitting nice and flush. So that when it goes back into the drawer, your drawer is going to be on a skew and it might affect the runners. We need to try and get this as flush as humanly possible. So run your fingers across it to make sure it's nice and flush, clamp it up, and then you can go ahead and just pop these screws in this side. Do exactly the same for the other. Once you've got the 3 sides in place, you can then go ahead with the measurement on the bottom panel. And all you need to then do is measure the inside of what you're cutting and make sure that you add on the 5mm on the top and bottom and on the sides for that plate, and that will just slide all the way through. Okay, so this is just a small section here just to show you how this needs to be lined up. So the inside of this panel must always be on the inside and not this panel put on the top. A couple of reasons for that is because you're going to be pulling the drawer in and out. When the actual panel is fixed to the front, the force of the screws that are on the side are going to hold it in place. If this was fixed underneath, or on top here I should say, when you pull, you can actually pull the screws straight out if you're putting the screws directly into the top, even with pilot holes. They can still pull out over time, they can get loose. By putting them on the side here, that's not going to happen. The other reason for that is the pocket screws that we drilled previously are actually fastened the sides in. This is obviously going to be facing the back or the front, and the other side is going to have a front drawer panel on it as well, so that's going to totally cover it with your handle on. So everything is concealed, so no matter when you pull the drawer out, you aren't going to see screw holes in the sides along here. You're not going to see pocket screws or anything countersunk, dowelled in. It'll all look nice and neat. Be a nicer finish for you. Okay, so we now have our assembled drawer just here. All we need to do is go ahead and get these drawer slides put in so we can finish these drawers off before painting. So the easiest way to do it is the instructions will be on each set of drawer slides, and every single set of drawer slides will be slightly different to the next one. But the long and the short of it is it'll tell you how far from the bottom plate you need to have a minimum height requirement for, and also how far in from the face edge it should be. So for this particular one, it's 12.5mm in from the front and 6.5mm from the bottom. So that's all you need to do, is just place it at that particular distance, at that measurement, screw it into the wall. Exactly the same on the other side. Assuming you've done everything flat and it's not uneven, then that drawer slide will sit in there perfectly. Just like this. And there you go. So what you might be thinking now is a difficult bit, which I thought would be, is to actually get the next row in. So all you need to do is, once you've built your first drawer, so rather than doing all three in a row and then realising you may have made an error somewhere down the line, is to do one door, assemble your drawer front, and for the drawer front, all you need to do is just get a scribe line and just mark where you would like it to go from either side, measure and cut that width. And for your depth, obviously it wants to be slightly bigger than the actual drawer depth that you've made. So this was a 250 deep drawer, I've just made this 270mm, so that it overlaps top and bottom. Does hide any imperfections as well, so if I'd have fitted this so that it was inside the frame, so an inset door, it would have to be absolutely perfect, otherwise you'd see, if any of this ran out, you would notice any small gaps that might appear. So having it as an overlay drawer does hide that, especially for beginners like myself, a lot easier to do. So once you've got that bottom drawer in place, you know the size for, on the instructions, how far it should be from the bottom. So from the bottom of this drawer, you need to leave that 6.5mm gap. The only thing you need to bear in mind is that the overlay from the front of the next drawer down is going to drop. So you just need to, whatever that distance is, plus the height you've overlapped this drawer. So let's say you've done this front overlapping by 5mm, and the other drawer in the middle there underlapping or overlapping on the bottom by 5mm. Raise that up by 10, so you've got 16.5mm from there to there, which is from the top of the drawer side to the bottom of the drawer rail, or the sliding rail. Screw that in place. You do exactly the same on the other side. You can scribe a line if you need to, if you find it easier to screw to. And that is exactly how the second drawer should go in place. And that's the second one in place there. We do exactly the same for the top drawer. Now what you might find, like I did, is because this is not exactly a perfect measurement from top to bottom, it's not a plumb number like 1 metre as I mentioned before, to err on the side of caution, because I've made each drawer individually, these bottom two drawers first, this top drawer is marginally, the front is going to be marginally bigger for me to get this overlap. The drawer size is still the same, but the actual front is slightly bigger, so make sure you keep your 10mm gap from this drawer. Scribe a line on here to be 5mm, and you cut that exactly the same width, just going to be slightly bigger. It's about 2mm, and that you're not going to see once it's all in place. So I've got the door all cut to size. I wasn't going to show you exactly measuring the door. It's very, very simple. Widest point of the door, longest point of the door, and as I mentioned in that previous video, measuring it from the right hand side on my particular one, so it's flush with the side, and then measuring the left hand side here, so you're leaving that 5 or 10mm gap, however thickness your material is, or the gap that you want to leave. The next part we're going to do is we're going to install these little T hinges, just simple ones from B&Q, 5 each. We're going to be sitting these inside the door here. We're going to be cutting them with a Forstner drill bit, so it's just a circular drill bit that will drop this hinge plate onto here. The key for that is every single hinge will come with its own set of instructions. So the key is the setting of the hinge from the face and making sure it's nice and aligned, which you can just use a set square with against this edge here so it's not tilted on an angle. I will go ahead and get those cut now. As you can see, that's how the hinge should just sit in there, so that when we're going to actually make this square, we just put a set square against here and draw that line across. So we're actually screwing it to the face of the cabinet, make sure that's square, and then we know the door is going to sit nice and parallel. Right, so we're on the home stretch now. All we've got to do is just drill some holes in the wall here and the side of the cabinet just for the shelf pins. Very, very simple. Mark exactly where you want the bottom of the shelf to fix. Pilot holes from drill holes in there. I'm going to put one in each corner. If you know that something's going to be really heavy on there, you want to put more shelf pins on. It is as simple as that. The only thing we haven't showed you is the actual hanging rail. It's very, very simple. The hanging rail I've got is one from B&Q. It doesn't need to be measured to a smaller piece or a bigger piece, depending on the clip that you're fixing it to. It comes with little metal brackets, obviously aluminium pole, and you cut the aluminium pole exactly the same length as you have in here. The aluminium pole then sits in a little knuckle and it sits flush with the back of that, so you don't have to worry about making it a little bit smaller to allow for the clip and then messing about with the actual length and thinking you're cutting it short. So very, very simple to use. We'll go ahead and get those done and then we'll get it all painted up, and you'll be able to see that in the thumbnail at the start of the video. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I just thought I'd give you a little bit of bonus content here for all those people that might be thinking, not going to attempt to even build these wardrobes. You can get cheap ones readily, easily available in IKEA these days for X amount of pounds. So I've got some notes here. So the total cost for the build, for all that, for materials, is the wood, drawer slides, everything was £144. That's for all the sheet goods, drawer slides, your pole fixings for the hanging rail, all the doorknobs and all the hinges for all the doors as well. So 144. I had a quick look on IKEA, and the cheapest I can sort of see that as a comparison is just their standard wardrobe. That works out at £75, and that you'll only get the hanging rail, a little bit wider than what I've got in the video, but you only get that. They don't do a pack where it does a hanging rail and a small amount of shelves. The next version up is part of their pack system, which is £230, in which you get the same amount of hanging space, but you get 5 shelving units as well as the 3 drawers. So that's about the closest. So price comparison, we sort of sit a little bit lower than middle for that. So better value for money. The difference you're going to find with the materials though is where theirs is made out of chipboard and it's got a melamine finish, so it can chip, and if it does chip, you're repairing chipboard. My unit, or any unit that you build out of MDF and plywood, with it being a painted finish, you can just repair it. If you do get a dink on the corner or anything, chip, scratch, it can just be filled in and repaired, no problem. The other thing I'll say about the unit itself is, just like you, I'm learning to build exactly like you, so there are things that I've done in this video that I probably wouldn't do again on subsequent videos, but you've got to be able to do them to learn. It's probably easier for me not to put this video on and then later on show you exactly how I do it once I've reached perfection, but you aren't going to be at that level, same as me to begin with. So I'm leaving this video to be put on. You can learn all the mistakes that you're going to do just as well as I did. You'll find that as you get better along the line, you'll find it a lot easier, and you'll find out a way to problem solve it a lot better. So thanks for watching. Please go ahead and subscribe and like the video. Please leave any comments in the section below, and I'll see you for the next video.